In this episode, we are focusing on the subject of English. The topic is poetic terminology. This was used with students who had already been aware of some of the terms, but were now introduced to new ones, namely personification, alliteration, metaphor, simile, rhyme, and power of three. The objective is for the students to be able to recognize these by the end of the lesson when they come across them. First, the learners need to be introduced to the concepts through something they can easily understand. Visuals always help with these. The slides here are from my presentation, taking students through the 6 new poetic terms. The first one is personification. As you can see, I use images of a rundown house and a depressed person, and very simple words such as dead and alive, to show how the house is now treated like a person. It's similar with the moon and the winking person in the second example. In both cases, I can ask questions such as, why is the house alive now? Or why is the moon alive? Or why is the house a person now? And why is the moon a person now? Indicating personification and by implication being alive. The images are incredibly helpful in allowing children to understand this concept. In this next slide, teaching what alliteration is, you will notice I have changed the color of litera within the alliteration. This is because I am aware that a letter is litera, certainly in my original language, Polish, with some other European languages having similar versions, e.g. lettres in French and letras in Spanish. Focusing on litera within the longer term allows students to be less overwhelmed by the length and complexity of this word and get the message across that what we really are concerned with here is the fact that alliteration involves using the same letters or sounds at the beginning of words making up a phrase or a sentence. The sentences provided then show this in action. The actual presentation involves disappearing most of the sentences, leaving out just the initial letters, sounds. This slide is to do with rhymes, and it's a matching activity that we do with students. Here, I'm getting them to say these out loud. They need to become aware of the fact that rhymes involve the end of a word sounding the same or similarly. Next up are similes. This resource is for EAL learners and it's introductory, so I do not bother here with introducing them to similes of the as sort. I simply focus on the ones involving the word like. I'm sure it's quite clear what I'm doing here. Images are provided to show the link between someone walking and a snail, which is always slow. Snails are always slow. It's a similar case with the very tall man compared to a mountain. Mountains are invariably tall. Please note that in these examples, I am not simply satisfied with using the verb to be. My sentences are not simply he is like a mountain, but I insist on using more descriptive verbs such as walks and looks. The explanation of similes is greatly facilitated by reminding students that this like is very different to its meaning in sentences of the I like him sorts. For a metaphor, I need to make students aware that in their everyday life they often use metaphors themselves without actually realizing it. Hence the first sentence, explained by the images themselves. He is a pig, at which most students smile and laugh. Questioning follows presenting these images to the students. Is he really a pig? No. What are pigs like? Why is he described to be a pig? It's the same, of course, with the example of the house and the fridge. We could use a simple graphic organizer, such as the one here, to show the idea that if a pig is dirty, disgusting, or any other of the ideas listed here, and the man presents similar qualities, then the man can be equated to the pig in the sentence, the man is a pig, even when in reality he isn't. The final 6th poetic term is power of free. Here it is explained by simply having two sentences which are presented to students first without the words in the red font, and asking the students to provide some potential words to complete the sentence. Insisting that they need to be adjectives, we can then show the answers while saying they are not, of course, the final answers, and there are many other different possibilities. Now we can proceed to the collaborative learning activity, where students will try and apply this knowledge. This activity is not in fact mine. It used to be available on the EAL Nexus website before it was acquired from the British Council by the Bell Foundation. Currently, I have nowhere to point you to in order to download it. It might one day appear on their website at the address that is seen in the bottom right corner here. The game involves three sets of cards: poetry terms cards, examples cards, and definitions cards. Students need to place them on a large board, a part of which you can see here on the left, which is significantly larger than the one presented here. It has more rows. This obviously takes some time. In order to structure their talk, speaking frames, as you can see in the image on the right, are provided, and I would insist also that the students explain their reason for stating "I think this is a" by following it up with "because it has," or "because I can see," or "because I have spotted." Once this is completed, with the teacher's assistance and support throughout, of course, we can move on to seeing what individual students remember. The cards and the game boards are taken away, and the students are now divided into 3 levels. In my class, these are red, lowest, orange, middle, and green, top. The lowest level is expected to complete certain words only, but not write any full sentences. We can also see that more boxes are left unfilled in the green top level differentiated activity than in the orange middle one, and in the middle level is expected to write only 2 definitions as opposed to no definition provided for the green level. The completed collaborative learning activity they had just completed is placed on the teacher's desk, and the students can walk up 3 times to my table to check if they are stuck, but will need, of course, to remember what they have just seen when they walk back to their tables in order to write this down. Now we proceed to writing a poem collaboratively. That is, every member of the group receives up to 2 slips of paper where they are to write sentences about love, which is the title of the poem, using teacher predetermined poetry techniques. It would be the teacher's decision to think which of the techniques are chosen for which students. For instance, writing a simple metaphor such as "love is a" is actually considerably easier than producing a rhyme for another word. A good working knowledge of vocabulary is required to find rhymes, because there are no dictionaries that will allow you to look for rhyming words. Such vocabulary range will be unavailable to beginner EAL learners. This activity can easily be differentiated for further by either 1. Providing hints as to what part of speech needs to be used, for instance adjectives in powers of 3, or a noun or an adjectival phrase, that is adjective plus noun, in the case of a metaphor. Or 2. Providing a list of illustrated words to choose from to complete the sentence for absolute beginners. The outcome of this lesson is for learners to be able to recognize the poetic devices when they come across them. Here, we do this through the game of bingo. Each student receives a bingo card, as you can see here. The teacher reads out the sentences for them, but this time they are new ones, not the same as in the collaborative card activity previously completed, and not from the love poem.